Gunlancer is a fantastic class for upcoming new players. They're highly acceptable to raid parties and deal decent amount of DPS even if they're marked as a tank support. I will go over the two main Gunlancer builds and playstyles to provide you some reference before choosing this class. Now let's talk about Gunlancer in general. Most people think they're very slow with a backstep. Well, they're not completely wrong because Gunlancers have a unique dodge mechanic. They jump backwards instead of forward, which could be annoying for some people. Or making people get confused because any of the other classes jump forward. However, Gunlancer literally peaks at everything else. Stagger, destruction on red build, tankiness, shield, and super armor support. And only class with taunt to enable strategic play for your party. Gunlancer staggers so good that he can actually solo some highest raids gimmicks. Now let's go over some of the key 3 skills both builds use. Bash is a synergy skill. It shaves off of 12% of enemies' defense. It has a short cooldown of 10 seconds. And it also enables a short-term buff for yourself for 5 seconds. And it works as a counter. Taunt. So Taunt is a one and only unique skill in this whole game that can interrupt bosses' attacks. Some raid bosses are immune, but if they're not, it's extremely good for your whole party to catch great damage push opportunities. So if I spawn a boss, he's attacking me, right? But if I taunt, you notice this attack is cancelled, and he's looking at me. So to give an additional comment about taunt, it fills up most of your shield gauge. So if I spawn a monster here and show you how much it fills, I taunt here, and it fills a lot, right? And I turn on defensive stance, you're on super armor mode the whole time. As red, you can also turn it on, but you just have a lot less shield meter. As for the other one, you can use all the shield meter to jump up and then protect an ally in this meter range. But again, it's rarely used. So lastly, the last shield is energy. So this one, it gives shield to yourself and your allies. Also, it has cleanse. This extra shield can really help your party when your support shields are on cooldown. So I will review Blue Gunlancer first because it has better in performance in the current endgame meta, and I'm playing it right now. I switched it from red, by the way. But don't be upset if you're playing to play red. They're both really, really good. I will explain this more in detail at the ending section. So Blue Gunlancer utilize all of the blue skills as a main source of damage. It is called the normal skill. So with the 3 mandatory skills equipped that I've explained a little bit earlier in the video, Bash, Taunt, and Illustrious Energy, you have an option to go 5 DPS skills or 4 DPS skills with 1 counter. Let's go over all of the used skills. So from the very top, you have Shield Bash, a combo skill with good damage and amazing stagger. Like that. Leap Attack is a great movement skill with good damage. It jumps twice if you have a proper tripod. Guardian's Thunderbolt. This is your main DPS skill. And Shield Charge. DPS skill that can also be utilized as movement skill with proper tripod build. If you notice here, you can move 20% faster. So if you notice this here, you're moving a lot faster, right? It's better than walking. And for your counter, you use the Dash Upper Fire. It is a pretty decent counter skill that pops twice. And lastly, Shield Shock. It is often used as your 5th defense skill, right? It also has a synergy of 12% armor reduction. You take this instead of your counter. So playstyle is very simple. You taunt to fill up your shield meter, which is impacted by your specialization stats. Turn on defensive stance. Bash to apply synergy to yourself and your party, right? As you notice here. And in this state, you do the most damage. So you apply Bash, and then you utilize your defense attack skills, right? To make sure all of them lands in 12 seconds. This is it. This is your cycle. So to go over, when you're in the defensive stance, you gotta make sure you turn it off to move around and change positions. You gotta get into the habit of turning it on and off. Also, when you taunt, when you have your shield on, your shield gauge is not gonna get filled up. This is a mistake that most Gunlancers do. You gotta make sure your defensive stance is off before you taunt to fill it up again. As you notice here, see? And when you do damage, you can still fill it up as much as you can. but when you have it on, it doesn't fill up. So you have to make sure that it's turned off and turned on. And while you're fighting, you gotta make sure your bashes again applied every time. Like when I have it at an 8 seconds because the cooldown's a little bit lower. And during the battle, if you think you're getting hit, you can use the Gunlancer's energy to provide shield to your party mates. And whenever the boss is like thinking to do a counter while it glows blue, you can just use the counter like that way too. So let's go over the awakenings real quick since I haven't went over it. So the Judgment Sword, you use it to do damage, plus in the zone you have 10% more crit rate for yourself and your party. And your second one, the Guardian's Shield, it provides super armor, and your party mates takes 40% reduced damage inside the zone. Gunlancer switches up the awakenings based on what raids you go to provide extra support or extra damage to the party. So to review, start with the awakening, 10% more crit chance, right? You fill up your shield gauge with taunt. You turn on defensive stance. You bash to enable you lower the defense by 12%, and then you try to land as many DPS skills as you can to end your combo. And this is really it. And by the time you use your defense DPS skills, your bash comes back. So you enable bash again for your party. Use your skills again. And make sure you turn off your defensive stance to reposition yourself. And making sure you turn it off if you're lower in shield to recharge it back up with taunt or your any other skills. And make sure you have the make sure on every cooldown your Gunlancer's energy is provided to your party mates to do some cleanse or provide just the extra shield for the party. It's simple and very strong and very newbie friendly because it's very hard to die with all the shields that you have, right? So it is just really good class for you to just try on. Now let's go over the red Gunlancer. Unlike blue, red takes all of the red lance skills as main source of damage, as in all of these above here. You have an option to go 5 DPS skills or 4 DPS with 1 counter or utility skill. Let's go over all of the use skills that the red Gunlancers have. First, Fire Bullet is it's a decent skill. It fires twice with the amount of tripod and has a 50% chance of reducing cooldown. So sometimes you hit it, if you're lucky, it kind of like resets. You notice I hit it twice and it resets. It just completely resets. So sometimes this thing has a destruction, and you can level up to destruction 2. You can break some of the raid's bosses by himself if it just resets a lot, right? So this is already 2. This is already 4 destruction points actually with the proper tripod, right? 4 destruction immediately. So from this point on, with just 1 skill, you can notice red Gunlancer is super good with destruction. Now let's go to the second skill, Gunlance Shot. This is a main DPS skill. It's a charge. And the third skill, Charge Stinger, also main DPS skill. This front. So your Surge Shot is your main go-to skill that deals most of your DPS. Charge it up, and you fire a bunch of times in the face. This is very satisfying. So your counter is the same, Dash Upper Fire. And lastly, Counter Gunlance. This is more of an optional skill. You don't really level it up to full tripod. If you successfully counter, it gives you additional boost of attack damage. So let me show an example by spawning a boss here. Okay, let's see if I can do it at the right time. See, I did it late there, right? But you notice I had the shield up still, so I didn't take that much damage. Let's see if I can do it at the right time. So here, there you go. See, I can use it to counter and do an attack, and I have an attack buff ready to go for me for extra damage. There you go, like this, and so on and so forth. So the playstyle of the red Roller is about the same as blue for the 3 mandatory skills. You taunt, you use Gunlancer's energy for support, and then you bash for synergy skill, right? Red Roller, you can't use the X skill because of the engravement. And taunt's gonna fill up very little, as I can show it to you here. This is like way less compared to the blue warlord, right? So usually use the defensive stance to just take hits and then turn it off. Take hits, turn it off, and you're consistently positioning yourself during the fight. Why? Because with red skills, you need to land them at the boss's head. And your gear is going to be specialized for extra head attack damage. And also it's the same as engravement. So you will do way more damage on the head and then doing it on the side. I can show you an example here. So if I use the charge stinger, land on the head, it gives about this much damage. But if I land on the side, I do way less. This is way less damage. And the crit rate is also different too. If you land on the head, it's a higher crit chance. So if I use the surge cannon, way much damage. If I land on the side, way less and less crit rate. The last hit didn't even crit, which is very saddening, right? So why is blue better than red in the current meta? As I explained in the red Gunlancer, damage is efficient when it's aimed at the head. For example, like that head right here. Current meta's problem is it's too much of a stress to consistently aim at the head. Because most of the later Legion raids, the bosses are much smaller and they just switch their head positions consistently. And the return on investment is not as good even if you perfectly land on the head all the time, compared to the blue warlord. So when blue can just turn on the shield stance and be safe most of the time, they can easily dish out their max DPS output without too much of a hassle. Because all you need to do is just spam all the buttons, right? As red needs to reposition himself consistently, constantly reposition himself, right? And land all of his attack. If you like blasting your enemies with the Gunlance, right? Which surge cannon is definitely more satisfying to use. Let me use it again. Right? It's more satisfying to use. Disadvantage of blue Gunlancer is a lack of destruction skills. Only the counter has the destruction skill for blue Gunlancer. Red Gunlancer, on the other hand, has destruction points in every single skill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has 5 destruction skills. This is amazing. Considering how much stagger the class delivers as well, he can probably solo most of the gimmicks by himself. So this concludes the video. Gunlancer is a really great class. Don't hesitate to play it. Don't hesitate to try it out. Blue and red. Some guys say blue is better, but I don't think that's the case. It's more of the meta change, and it's just mechanically difficult to play red. So feel free to ask for any other classes, endgame playstyles in the comments. Again, feel free to visit my stream at Twitch to ask more detailed questions, because I haven't really went over everything about Gunlancer because I didn't want to make the video too long. So I'm always down to talk to more new players. So as always, thank you for watching, man. Bye.